Jonathan Allen, you were inside the courtroom. We already had a chance to talk to Rachel Maddow, but I want to get your impressions of what it felt like in that room, and where exactly were you? What could you see in terms of Donald Trump's reaction and interaction with his lawyers?
Yeah, I was sitting in a pew, effectively, toward the back of the courtroom. Donald Trump in front of me, his back to me, but when he looked at the jury and when he looked at his own lawyers, you could see him in profile. He had a very sort of serious look on his face, his mouth drawn most of the time. As Katie said, you could see his attention move from place to place. He looked at the jury pretty straight on for a good portion. Whether he's staring them down or simply interested, I guess is a matter of opinion, but you could definitely see that sort of trademark stone face of Donald Trump facing the jury a lot. I thought one of the interesting things about David Pecker, we didn't get a lot of testimony from him yet, but one of the fascinating things to me about what he was saying was, number one, he basically took accountability for killing stories, so he is the power that the prosecutors are going after. Number two, he remembered a bunch of his phone numbers from the past, from about 8 or 10 years ago, and I know it's such a small thing, it's one of the basic questions, but basically establishing with the jury how sharp his memory is, that he was able to remember the digits of phone numbers over and over again from years ago. So it'll be interesting to see any efforts to sort of undermine his sharpness.
Well, they're actually going to use those phone numbers to tie in the phone records, by the way, and that's part of the reason why Pecker's testimony was important, for those last 4 digits of multiple telephones that he had.
That's what I figured when I was reading from our Google Doc, what are the last 4 digits of your phone? So they could go through that and establish the chain of custody or the connection that he had. Jonathan Alter, I want to ask you, what did you make of defense lawyer Todd Blanche trying to say that Trump was just a husband, a father, just like me?
Well, Andrea, that part of their defense is not going to work, and it's for this reason. They want the jury to believe that Donald Trump was just doing this in order to protect his wife and his family, from this pretty terrible publicity about the affairs that he had. But we're going to hear quite a bit of testimony about how Trump, shortly before the election, told Michael Cohen, don't pay her, stiff her, don't give her the money, because we only need to get through the election, and then if she goes public with her story, it doesn't matter. And so what that would establish, and will establish, I think, is that he wasn't just paying this hush money to protect his family. He was doing it to help win the election. Now, I couldn't see from my vantage point. I was about 5 rows back, directly behind Trump, because I could only see the back of his head. So I couldn't see his reaction. But I had a very good view of the jury today. And I was really struck by how attentive the jury is. 10 members of the jury asked for notebooks so that they could take notes, which, of course, they can't take home with them and will be destroyed at the end of the trial. But this was just one indication of how plugged in they were. There wasn't anybody snoozing on that jury today.
I wonder what your observation of that was, Katie Phang, and if there were particular moments that you thought stood out. For me, talking about Michael Cohen, the argument that he was obsessed with President Trump, he was loyal to President Trump for many years, but then he wanted a job in the administration and he didn't get one. And you also pointed out in our Google Doc that Todd Blanche attacked the age of this prosecution. Memories start to get weak, right? The case is an old one. No one brought it for all these years. What did you observe that might have really landed?
Yeah, I think it's the stark juxtaposition, Chris, between the crisp, concise, succinct presentation by the prosecution and their opening, and Todd Blanche, who was kind of meandering in his opening. He had moments that were interrupted by objections that were sustained by Judge Merchan because they were frankly argumentative. But what happened was Todd seemed to be looking like he was trying to find maybe a little bit of an idea here and a little bit of idea there. And one of the things he's like, oh, yeah, the age of this case is something. So he would talk about that. Oh, yeah, Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, they have credibility issues. But the problem is they, as in both the prosecution and the defense, at the end of both of their opening statements, asked the jury to do exactly the same thing, to tune out the noise, to focus on the evidence. And for Donald Trump, that's going to be a problem, because even if you don't like Michael Cohen, even if you don't approve of Stormy Daniels, the corroborating evidence in the forms of the messages, the checks, the texts, the phone calls, the things that Andrea was talking about as well a minute ago about how you create that chain of custody, those things don't lie. The motives and the intent behind trying to hide all of these payments don't lie. I think the one thing, too, that really landed was what really resonated is the fact that Donald Trump was criming from the Oval Office. Even Todd Blanche said that Donald Trump was writing checks from the White House to be able to make the payments to Michael Cohen. I think that really, really landed with the jury, and they were definitely interested in hearing those portions of the openings.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.